for millennials out there, many of the followers of the factual feminist are college age or younger, and they may have been in schools, in universities where conservatism was denigrated or simply not represented. So how do you define conservatism and what are its virtues?
Well, this has been my life's work to define conservatism. At a certain stage, I realized that I was a conservative without knowing quite what it was. Let's say in May 1968 in Paris, when I saw all the students protesting on behalf of essentially nothing, not knowing what they wanted, knowing only what they were against, I felt this is outrageous, that they should be listened to. If people's feelings are purely negative, defining themselves in terms of what they dislike or even hate, then they're under an obligation to find something that they love. So I looked around myself for the things that I love, and I decided that they are the things that I already have. Our civilization, the rule of law, the ability to close a door and be secure behind it. All those
that we take for granted.
We take for granted
the benefits of civilization.
Exactly, but they were threatened then by these crazy students who had had all these benefits.
Yes, it was very much an upper middle class uprising.
Yes, exactly. Well, I observed it from my mansard in the street below in Paris, and it was a revolution supposedly against the bourgeoisie on behalf of the working class. I looked down in the street for representatives of the working class. The only ones I could see were those poor policemen whom they were throwing stones at.
Exactly, and we've seen this now on some of our college campuses.
Exactly. So my thought, anyway, over the many years that I've looked into this question, my thought is that the essential feature of conservatism is love of the actual, love of the things that you've inherited, and a desire to reassert that inheritance, not uncritically, but in the way that you do with your family, your parents, your brothers and sisters. You know their faults, but you love them. They are part of you, and it's your primary duty to affirm that love, and then work for any improvements, of course.
Now, when you say improvements, I can imagine someone from the left responding that, what are you talking about? Conserving? What if what you are conserving is corrupt, full of injustice, institutions where women were second-class citizens and so forth? What do you say?
Everything is imperfect, but the question is, what parts of what you've inherited can be improved and amended? What parts must be thrown away? But what parts are necessary if you're to do any improving at all? Edmund Burke said, we reform in order to conserve. If we don't do it that way, then we risk losing the whole motive for reforming in the first place, because we throw away our identity as social beings.
And it's much easier to tear something apart than to
yeah.
build it. And so heedlessly, we've seen denigrations of beauty in contemporary life, and in education, where young people aren't introduced to great works of the past, or even something like the beauty of the common law.
Yes.
There's not an understanding of where our laws come from. I see students today that suddenly want to dispense with due process or have, they would like to change the First Amendment. No understanding of how these came into being.
No, that's right. Well, I think this is where one has to steer a middle course between saying, look, this is our inheritance, accept it, or saying, get rid of all that and let's start again. All attempts to get rid of everything and start again, like the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution or the Nazi Revolution, end up as genocide. Because the controls that prevent people from exercising their basic resentment and anger are taken away. So you have to begin from the point that we've inherited something that defines what we are. Let's see now whether we want to improve it in this or that respect, and which which parts of it are absolutely fundamental to our being what we are. And you mentioned the common law, which of course is part of the shared inheritance of my country and yours, which most young people don't fully understand. They don't see the amazing achievement of a legal system that has grown out of the resolution of individual conflicts and then the extraction of principles from that, so that it's sensitive at every point to the actuality of human beings.
And developed organically from
exactly.
the ground up rather than from on high.
Yeah, imposed. See, but it's a natural instinct in intellectuals, and the reason why intellectuals are so dangerous is to impose things from on high, to say, look, we understand everything. We've got the answer to the human problem. Here are the principles. Those are going to be accepted, and we'll deduce from that the application in the individual case. And that's the opposite of how human conflicts are resolved. The principles are deduced from the particular case and not the other way around.
Not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And you have seen this, for example, in the area of art and art history, how there was a tradition of beauty and works of genius, and younger people were taught to appreciate and younger artists to emulate. And then suddenly there were, well, it wasn't sudden, but there was a gradual move in modernity and then post-modernity, and something was lost. And you've talked about this in...
Yeah, this is something that has troubled me, because I've always been interested in the arts. And for me, when I was growing up, I was, like many of my generation, I was looking for something that would represent the civilization that had almost destroyed itself in the Second World War. You know, what was so great? What is the symbol of that I would really want to hold on to? Of course, art, music, and literature became symbols for me. And then I was faced, as all my generation were faced, with the strange puzzle that at a certain stage artists themselves seem to be turning against their vocation. The vocation of art, as I see it, is to produce beautiful things through the beauty of which we understand our own predicament. You know, the human condition, as we know, is full of woes, full of tragedy, and full of
mystery.
And one of the tasks of art is to reconcile us to this, to show that in the very depths of despair there is beauty which redeems us. And all the great art of the past, you know, right up to Van Gogh and Cézanne and so on, was devoted to this transcendental goal. Suddenly there was a kind of culture of repudiation that came about, and that we don't want this, we can't do it, therefore we're going to condemn it. And you get art like de Kooning and people like that, which became very fashionable in America, devoted to the goal of desecrating the human condition rather than redeeming it. And I think that was, you know, a religious person would say that was the devil's work, but I don't want to put it quite in that way. But there is something in us which wants to destroy, as well as the other thing that wants to affirm. And art is particularly vulnerable to this, because, you know, let's face it, at a certain stage in our civilization, the artist became a kind of hero. He was adulated, he was made into the representative of the human spirit for our times. And to get that status became, you know, an object of great desire.
Coveted.
Yeah, people coveted the status of artist, and so any way of getting attention at a certain stage seemed good. So you got all that pop art stuff, or worse, you know, like Tracy Emin putting on display her disordered bed, in
frightening.
Which, yes, in which all the mess of her daily life is made into a spectacle, and the people will queue to see that spectacle, just as they used to queue to look at crucifixions. But it doesn't follow that the thing is beautiful, and it doesn't follow that they'll go away from this improved or in any way made to reflect on their own condition and be reconciled to it.